We all know why we're here. Yandere dev, aka Alex Mahan, has confessed to grooming a minor. My heart goes out to everyone affected by this news, any possible victims, fans of the games, employees, and volunteers like myself. I silently quit volunteering for Yandere Simulator a few years ago after my art kept being undervalued, uncredited, and just never showed. So today, I'll be giving a timeline of my personal history of volunteering for Alex. I'm not covering anything that has happened to other people since that's not my story to tell, and my reason for making this is to have everything in one specific spot and explaining why I would no longer be working for Yandere Dev, even if he paid me to. Let's start with why I volunteered. I discovered Yandere Simulator in its early stages of development while I was still in middle school. I saw its potential and I submitted art to Yandere Dev to show how much I loved the game, but I received no response. Years later, at 18 and in art college, I decided to try volunteering for him. I wanted experience, recognition, and just to be part of a game I've known about for years, despite my reservations about Alex's behavior and reputation. I was hired to volunteer with these drawings. He said that my circle head, simplistic art style would work better for another video game idea he had, which was essentially a visual novel about a killer and her victim, which I would have done all the character sprites for. I was ecstatic. Me, someone whose dream is to be a character designer, getting to make main characters for a game. I was hooked. The main characters were basically described to me as Ayano, but more depressed, and the lead bully girl from Yandere Sim. But I felt like I did a good job at making them feel like different people, considering he just wanted a rehash of characters already made. But after drawing all these quick sketches and character concept, I was told that he needed to focus on Yandere Sim, so he was putting my work on hold. Which, I understood, considering it's been 10 years now since he started making Yandere Simulator. I was told instead to focus on the thumbnails for 5 videos he had already made. I'm not exactly the proudest of these now, but that's what he wanted at the time. But I was doing all these for free, so beggars can't be choosers. All I'd ask is that I'd get credit, which I thankfully received. Then I had to do a thumbnail for this new video he was making. This one I was really happy with at the time. I honestly prefer my non-bloody version, but we'll talk about these thumbnails again later. I volunteered to work on 1980s mode. Originally I was supposed to make the posters around the school, but then Yandere Dev felt I was better suited to design the shopkeepers. I was pretty much given free range to design what I wanted, except for the hairdresser who was supposed to be the younger version of her elder counterpart. I was told I needed to do an 80s anime style, which my college bans us from drawing anything that looks remotely anime, because that's not the standards here. So let's just say I was in completely new territory, but I did my best considering the references I was given, and I think I did a pretty decent job for someone who didn't know what they were doing. There was nothing I really had planned for these characters other than the fact that I wanted each of them to have their own color and for some of them to be opposites of their 2000s counterpart. So that way it would feel like every shop was different. The only character design that had to be changed from my original idea was the gaming shopkeep, who I wanted to be this clumsy woman who liked dressing up in cosplay, but I was instead told to turn her into a classic nerd. Originally, I was going to put a layer on top to have it resemble the references more, to give it that classic old TV vibe, but I was told that the game itself would have a filter to make it look like that, which it never ended up having that effect, I feel like. I was astonished when I saw my art in the game. I proudly showed my whole family, and my heart soared seeing my hard work in a game that I was so excited to be a part of for such a long time. I wanted to see everyone's opinions online for it, and my original designs got so much love, it just affirmed in my heart that character design is what I'm meant to do, and that's what I'm determined to continue doing. But sadly, that feeling was short-lived. Alex told me that my art was going to be redrawn by another artist very shortly after I had just showed my parents my art in game. My hours of free work were just mere placeholders for his lead artist to fill. They said they'd be taking my designs and drawing them with a better art style, even though he had asked me to do a specific 80s anime art style that I wasn't experienced at all doing. If I was just able to do my art style I was more comfortable with doing in the first place, I'm sure I could have came up with some brilliant, more detailed art, since animation is supposed to be simplistic in the first place, which is what I was going for. They took a majority of my designs, changed a few things, but even then you can still tell that my work inspired the lead artist heavily. Without my versions, hers would look very different, and sadly I never got credit for making the concept art or the original shopkeepers. The lead artist took full credit for her version, saying that she got it from fashion in the 80s and this and that, and Yandere Dev even said in his video that the lead artist made every single art piece for 1980s mode as soon as it came out, while my art was still in it, just waiting to be replaced. I remember having to try and prove myself in the comments that I made the shopkeepers in the first build of 1980s mode, and not Mulberry. And all that just because I never got credit for my versions of them. I'm so glad I posted stuff before 1980s mode came out, or else I wouldn't have been able to have any proof of it originally being my work for my designs that inspired the new ones. I just remember being so upset that all my work felt like nothing, tossed aside without even a mention of all the work that I had done. Other than what remains of my designs, none of my work is currently in Yandere Sim, and now, it can never be. I sadly quit while in the middle of working on a video for him. I was just done working with him with no credit. The one thing I always asked him for in return. He was always so demanding with what he wanted, more than any customer I've ever had. If I got paid, I would have just dealt with it. With all the demands and changes, he was just so entitled to free work, not realizing how much time it takes to make. But since my work was free, I figured, fuck it. Why do I keep doing what he wants? It's just gonna get replaced in a month anyway, so I just quit. He even tried to convince me to redraw my own thumbnails later on, and I politely told him I'm not redoing stuff I already completed just because my art is better now. 2-ish years later, a few weeks ago, Yandere Dev was exposed for grooming a minor. And I was groomed at 17, and the fact that I started working for him several months after one of the worst things that's ever happened to me, I felt so much rage and disgust. Some people aren't taking this seriously and still supporting him, just holding on hope that his game would be finished one day. I used to be like that, even with how he treated me in my work, and I just can't excuse his actions anymore. This was the last straw, and I don't want his greedy hands on my work anymore. I decided to confront him as soon as I heard the news. I'll admit, I was way nicer than I wanted to be, mostly because I wanted him to actually do it. I wanted him to replace the only thing he actually gave me credit for, which was my 6 thumbnails I had made. Forget the shopkeepers, they can stay because another artist redrew it. And my other works have either never seen the light of day or no one knew I made them originally anyways. I just wanted the last remaining piece of my recognizable art to be gone, just like my singular ounce of respect vanished from the moment I saw he was just like the other perverted man who took advantage of me. I had thought everything was settled. He said it would take a few days to replace it, and my credits in the description were gone immediately. I thought at least for once he respected my art and my decision. It was free work. I had the right to decide to take it down if it was paid. I would have been fine with it staying up considering I'd made it before this whole grooming situation came to light. But it was not, so morally I have the right to decide where my art is placed, and I certainly wasn't going to have my name attached to a predator's YouTube channel. One morning, I received a direct message from a fan, you know who you are, thank you so much by the way, telling me that people on Reddit suspected he had AI-generated my work. I agreed. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to suspect it was AI, especially from far away. The hood not attaching to the jacket, the hands not grabbing onto anything, the saw blades being uneven, the general spacing and composition of everything. You can't blame anyone for thinking that it looked like Yandere Dev slapped my work into a generator and said, "Make anime." That's definitely something he would do. When I heard that this was a possibility, I went to check the credited artist for the thumbnail, and it linked to a Twitter account, I'm not going to call it X, And in their tweets, I didn't see anything related to them working for Yandere Dev, and they actually looked like a competent artist and had a slightly different anime art style than what was in the thumbnail, leading me to further believe it could have been AI. So I honestly thought he AI generated it and tagged a random artist hoping no one would notice, considering those videos are 2 years old. At the time of this happening, it's not the case anymore. Some of my thumbnails weren't replaced, but for the ones that were, you can see that this other artist actually made it look like a new concept, even just changing where the hand was posed, and a distinct art style, and even details I never made that show that it was their own thing. No insult to the other artist, but this one looked as if they tried to reference my work without understanding why I made it that way. I'm mainly talking about the hood and hands here, which is why many believed it was AI generated. I had to unblock Alex and ask him if he seriously thought that AI generating my work was a good idea, but no, what actually happened was kinda worse in a sense. He said it wasn't AI and gave me a higher quality image, and I was shocked. It wasn't made by an AI robot, it was made by a real person. At the very least, they heavily referenced my work. At worst, they tried to copy it in some aspects, but I'll give the artist the benefit of the doubt and say that it's the first one. I mostly blame Alex. It was probably his idea to get everything in the image as close to mine as possible, because I remember how demanding he was that I get this thumbnail exactly how he wanted it. And things that I did specifically for this image were mimicked, and the artist didn't really try to make it their own. For example, I give Ayano 2 eyelashes on her bottom lip, which isn't on her character model, that's just something I do. And my hand, I had her pinky sticking out, which, didn't have to be replicated. It was just me drawing my hands the way I draw hands. There were many ways that this artist could have kept the original idea of the thumbnail, but make it their own. Instead, they looked at my image and says, I can do that too. And the fact that most people knew it looked so similar to my drawing that they thought it was AI proves that. And I honestly would have preferred the robot at this point. No hate towards this artist, but their work quality is really good on their Twitter. I'm just mostly pissed off that they were paid to heavily reference mine. Yeah, this artist got paid to mimic the work I did for free, and I only knew about this because Alex said that he paid for it and that it would be such a shame if he'd have to pay to get a new one. And when I asked why he did that, paying an artist to reference my work when I never got paid at all in my entirety of working for Yandere Sim, his defense was that I never asked. I was 18 when I worked for him. I thought no one was getting paid on Yandere Simulator. The word volunteer means free labor. It literally proves the fact that he could have paid me for all my hours of work and wasted time for work that will never see the light of day. He just didn't, but he'll gladly pay someone else to redraw an entire piece so similarly that people will still think it's mine, but just AI generated. I'm not complaining that I specifically didn't get paid. I fully understood what I signed up for at the time. It's the fact that he could have compensated me when I was upset that my months of work, were being replaced and uncredited despite how much it affected the final product that Mulberry did. It just infuriates me, Anyways, he told me he'd pay the artist to completely change it, which I guess is nice of him despite it all. But his defense for it being so close to mine was the fact that I just wanted the art taken down, not the concept of the thumbnail had to be changed. This is the thumbnail concept staying the same. This is mimicking. This is people telling me they think it's AI because no paid artist would make simple mistakes, and I agree. That artist on Twitter actually seems competent, so I don't know why this thumbnail has so many major mistakes. Normally, I'm not mean about this because these artists are doing a paid job, but still, working for him after he was proving to be grooming a minor is pretty scummy. So both of these artists are in the wrong, but I kinda respect this artist a little bit more because they made the pose their own. They made the artwork their own despite me being the basis for it, in a sense. But again, don't send any of these artists hate. I'm sure Alex is paying them good money for this, considering hopefully no one is working for him for free anymore. So, that was my timeline of my history with Yandere Dev. I've left some tinier, smaller things out, but that was pretty much the more important things out of the way. I hope I never have to speak with him again, unless somehow he manages to continue using my work in some way. Does this technically mean I get to keep my old shopkeeper designs? Ooh, and Killer and Victim. Alright, I'll leave these here. Maybe comment some names on what you think they should be called. I want something positive to come out of the work I did. And thank you guys for taking the time to listen. You guys are always supporting me, which is so sweet. I really don't like confrontation or being in the middle of drama, which is why I never talked much about this stuff in the first place when I quit 2 years ago. About the situation with the shopkeepers. I just couldn't stand the thought of that pedophile continuing to get away with his scummy behavior. Regardless if it's AI or a paid artist, I'm not sure I would have been happy either way if people were still thinking my art was still up. At the time of me recording this, all my old thumbnails have been replaced by artists and don't resemble my work in any sense, therefore, hopefully I will no longer have to talk to Alex. I honestly hope that Yandere Simulator rots. If anyone isn't a pedophile and wants to make a Yandere Simulator game that takes place in an actual college and doesn't take panty shots of teenage girls for currency, I'd gladly love to be the character designer for it, although I'd just ask to be paid this time. The only time I think I'll be doing anything Yandere Sim related in the future would be like a redraw or rewrite or stuff that's basically a big FU to Alex. To actually create the version of the game that I had in my head that I saw potential for as a kid. Nothing that promotes the original game or Alex himself, because that man is an absolute trash can of a human being, and hopefully he gets arrested soon. I hope anyone who still supports him wakes up and see that he's no longer someone worth supporting.